So whenever you guys have questions, if anything's confusing, just type it in. I'll read it out and we'll try to answer it for you.
Yes. Also, can you take attendance?
Yep, doing that now.
All right. So it's good to know you're here by looking at your names, so I can't see. Thank you. Appreciate you taking time to talk about this, to learn about this. So this is really sort of the most important, most pressing thing that you can be thinking about right now as far as your college goals for next year, right? So the thing is, you can get accepted to a lot of colleges, and that's awesome, but if you don't have the funds secured, you won't be able to attend. So honestly, first things first is like, let's get this accomplished. So we're going to do a brief overview. We're going to do an overview of sort of how the process is going to go, like a get your mind in the right place kind of situation. And then we're going to have one-on-one follow-ups with you. So don't feel like you have to learn everything right now, but do pay attention so you can start getting ready and start gathering documents so that when we meet one-on-one, you know your situation, okay? So I think I started, or yeah, last time. It doesn't matter. Okay, I'll keep going. Okay, so overall, basically, what is financial aid? Of course, you've heard of this before. You've heard about financial aid a lot, but it's basically funds you receive to help you pay for college, right? Very easy. And to pay for college in a lot of different ways. That means tuition fees, those kinds of things. Also room and board, that's all included in financial aid. There's two ways you kind of get financial aid. There's need-based financial aid, which is money that is given to a student based on their family's income in the previous year. So that has nothing to do with how well you do in school or any talent like that. It's simply based on your family's income, your household's income, plus the number of people that live in that household. The second type of financial aid is called merit-based financial aid, and this is awarded based on grades, talents, outstanding achievements, or attainment of specific requirements and criteria. So these are typically, scholarships, right? Those things that you hear about people getting that help them pay kind of above and beyond maybe what they didn't get based on their need-based financial aid, or just kind of supplementary stuff that they get. So those are like the two categories. Is it based on need, your financial aid, or is it based on merit?
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get into what specific types of financial aid you will all encounter at some point in your college career. So a lot of these I'm sure you have heard about just in general, loans especially I'm sure you have heard about, but let's make sure we clear it up and get some good definition of these. So the first thing is grants. A grant is financial aid you do not have to pay back. It is granted, it is gifted to you. You can think of it as free money. I try not to think of anything as free anything because it takes some amount of effort. So it is free money in the way that you don't have to pay it back. However, you will have to do an application, keep up with it, and make sure you're just monitoring it. So that's grants. Don't have to pay it back. It's gifted to you. You do have to still apply for it. It doesn't magically happen in your lap. The second thing is loans. Obviously, loans are things that are loaned. Loans are given, but you are expected to give it back. Financial aid that you do have to pay back is loans. And so that's one of the ones that you probably have heard the most of, because people are usually like, oh, loans are bad, don't take out loans, like don't make sure you're not leaving college with too much loan debt. Loans. And we'll go into the specifics of what kind of loans you might encounter. Scholarships, probably the first or second thing that you've been hearing most about. Scholarships is financial aid that you are awarded based on merit or specific criteria that you meet. Most commonly, scholarships are gained through applying for scholarships. But again, we'll go into what kind of scholarships there are and where you can expect to receive them from. But scholarships, you are awarded based on merit, or you have applied to a specific scholarship where you met some criteria. Work study is one that you might not have heard too much about. It is financial aid that you work for during school. So when you get to college, I'm sure you will be hearing a lot about work study. And what that looks like is you are invited or eligible for work study through your financial aid package, and you can take the college's offer up and decide to work on campus for work study by working as, maybe you're working at the front desk at the admissions office at the college, or in the library, or as security in the science building or something like that. And so when you're working on campus, you could be earning money directly into your pocket, but also putting money towards your tuition through the hours that you're working on campus. So it's work study. It's financially sort of tied to you working on campus specifically.
Okay, can I ask you a question, guys? And you can type an answer in the chat. Do you think grants are merit-based or need-based? Do we got any answers in the chat, Joe? Not yet.
Kayla said both, maybe.
That's right, Kayla. You got, so grants can be given both. You can get grants based on need. You can also get grants based on your merit from colleges. Good. The loans, it's pretty obvious. Well, loans are based on need. Scholarships are based on merit, and work study is based on need and availability. But yeah, so that's that. Grants can be either need or merit based. Okay. Next. All right, so where does this money come from? And this is kind of back to what Mr. Joe was talking about, is that none of this is exactly free because it takes effort and it takes a little bit of kind of monitoring different spots. Just to say that, you know, when you hear about somebody saying, I have a full ride, it's very rarely from one source. Most people are getting their college education paid for by many sources. So I don't think I've had one case where somebody was entirely like a scholarship, or like it's multiple. Well, I had one case. One student got the Gates Millennial Scholarship, but that's a very rare scholarship and incredibly hard to get. Well, not that hard. You could do it if you wanted to. You just have to write like 12 essays and have like a really great SAT score and GPA. But let's talk about this. Where does the money come from? So the first place that the money comes from is the United States. Through the Department of Education. It's a federal organization. It provides loans, grants, and work study. And like we said, they're all need-based. Nothing from the United States Department of Education is based on merit. It's all based on how much family income comes into your house. Then the state of Pennsylvania, through the Pennsylvania Higher Education Access Agency, or FEA, provides grants, and that's all need-based as well. So that's an application that you'll be doing as well. Next, the college you ultimately attend provides financial aid, and they provide that through their alumni and their own funds. So you might hear of a college talking about their endowment. That's where the money comes from that they provide to students for grants and scholarships. Colleges typically provide both need-based and merit-based scholarships, and you don't often have to do much besides submit your application, and they automatically consider you for their grants and scholarships. But occasionally they might have something outside that you would have to apply for. But for the most part, when you apply to a college and they get your transcript, they automatically consider you for their grants and scholarships. And then finally, you get financial aid through outside organizations, such as your high school, clubs, different companies, foundations, the city of Philadelphia, nonprofits, for-profits, individuals, they all provide scholarships. And like we said, scholarships are always merit-based. So can you think of a place, can we get some comments? What are some common scholarships that you have heard of, or places that give scholarships? Have you ever heard of any place giving scholarships? Nothing? You never heard of any scholarships? So for instance, oh, we got one. What does it say,
Sports
Joe?
companies?
Who?
Sports companies from Kayla?
Yeah, I did hear, what was it? I think it was like last year there was like Famous Footwear was doing, I don't know if that's a sports company. I guess it is, right? Athletics and or was like a Sneaker Villa or something was doing some scholarships. Like a lot of places, we'll give you a list, some different resources about where the different organizations, but keep your eye out. Now that you know that a lot of different organizations, like something like the Urban League, you might have heard of that. They provide a lot of scholarships to Philadelphia high school students. So we're going to keep our eyes out. We're going to pay attention to your parent might work at an organization that provides a scholarship. So keep your eyes out for that.
Okay, so like I was mentioning earlier, how do we even begin to get financial aid? Well, our first actual step towards getting your school funded is the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, which you probably have heard that acronym or just, about FAFSA a lot, hopefully. And so that's what FAFSA stands for. It's the free application. You don't have to pay to fill out this application at all for federal student aid. The reason I say you don't have to pay for this application at all is sometimes there are people and companies out there who are, charging students to help them complete the FAFSA, which is not the best way to go about it.
It's a scam. No,
it's
not.
a scam.
It's like straight up scam. Like, don't be
yeah.
Joe. It's don't.
So they do it like sometimes a while back, students were being tricked because FAFSA.com was bought by someone who was like, enter your credit card information here and a representative will help you out with your financial aid, and obviously get scammed. So anything from the FAFSA, anything about financial aid is going to come from websites that end in .ed or .edgov. So where Miss Amy was pointing out on the previous slide, FAFSA.ed.gov is where you're going for the application. So keep that in mind. It's free. We're helping you. You don't need anyone else's help. Don't pay for anyone to help you with this. Okay. So that's the FAFSA. In order to receive any financial aid from schools that you want to go to, you must complete the FAFSA. Even if you're like, no, I'm not going to take loans. Like the FAFSA is not just about loans. All the FAFSA is an application where you put your personal and financial information. That application gets sent out to the government and they analyze your income and all that stuff and what you might be eligible for. And then the government will send your application out to all the schools that you requested to apply to. So we're sending one application to the FAFSA that will send your information to the schools you're applying to. And then after we do the FAFSA, we can do the FIA, where same thing, it'll be sent to the state. They'll analyze your information and then send that information out to the schools.
Just to clarify a little bit, though, it's literally the FAFSA it's directly connected to the state, so you won't have to enter the information twice, the state application. So it's really going to be one process. You do the FAFSA, and then it links you directly to the FIA that we talked about, and so you won't have to do any. You'll have another account, but it'll be all of the same information you already entered into the FAFSA.
Right. Let's see. So through that, they will analyze your finances and figure out what you're eligible for in terms of loans and grants. The Department of Ed, the state of PA, and the college you attend, and all organizations that provide scholarships will also require you to have submitted the FAFSA. It will be very important that after we submit the FAFSA and also to the state for the FIA, that you keep up on any emails that you might be getting from, just studentloans.ed.gov, FAFSA.ed.gov, from the FIA, anything that has to do with the government financial websites. Make sure you're keeping an eye out on any physical mail or emails.
All right, so what are the eligibility requirements to be eligible to receive financial aid? So the first thing is that you need to be a U.S. citizen, a national, or an eligible non-citizen, which would include refugees and permanent residents. This is if you kind of paid attention to things in the news. If you heard a couple years back, they were talking about DACA and Dreamers. So these were students who weren't eligible for federal student aid because they were not United States citizens, despite having grown up here, right? So that was something, that's because that's part of what FAFSA does require. You do have to have a high school diploma or an equivalent, which would mean a GED. You have to be enrolled in a college that's been deemed eligible. So that's a school that is accredited. So we've talked to you about that before. They need to show up when you are like at the bottom of the FAFSA, after you've filled it all out. You're going to have like a spot to put in schools, right? So you can put the school, you can put Temple University, Community College of Philadelphia. You look them up and you'll see they show up on the FAFSA, and that means that you would be able to have financial aid go to one of those schools. That's because the government's not trying to pay for fake colleges, supposedly, right? So you also have to have a valid social security number. And we ask you be extremely careful with your social security number. And when you're entering it, you like are actually looking at your card and not, you know, that you make no mistakes with that. It's really important. Gentlemen, so Joshua, Ali, and Stephen, one of the requirements to receive financial aid in the United States is that you register for selective service. I would be happy to talk more about it with each one of you, but essentially selective service is the requirement that all men over the age of 18 register in order to be selected for a draft, should there be one during a time of war, which is, you know, a lot, and it's heavy. And that's back to this thing that like nothing is really free, right? Like people require things from people. So it's required regardless of what you're supposed to do it regardless of whether you get financial aid or not. Also, the draft is not something that has been something that this country has done since the 70s because of the Vietnam War and the backlash that Congress got from it. They don't like to be that unpopular. That made them feel bad, so they haven't drafted, and that's why we have an all volunteer military, and they're so stretched out. Anyway, so we'll talk more about that if you'd like to. You need to have satisfactory academic progress in college. So you'll fill this out every year. You can lose financial aid if you are not earning good grades. You can be put on financial aid probation. You can you can be told that you have to get good grades one semester or they'll take it away the next semester. So it is required. And if you think about it from the perspective of the government, they're giving loans, they're giving money, right? So they want to be sure it's a good investment. A good investment is somebody who's taking that seriously and actually trying to earn a degree. Because when you earn a degree, you are more likely to get a job. When you get a job, you will pay taxes, right? And so this is the system. So they want you to do well, so you actually get your college degree. And of course, obviously that also benefits you, right? So it's worth it, but that is a requirement. The state of Pennsylvania requires that you are a PA resident to qualify for the FIA, which seems pretty obvious there. And then different colleges and scholarships will have additional requirements. So there'll be some scholarships that we find that you're not eligible for because they're only for girls, or they're only for boys, or they're only from students from Franklin High School, or like they can get that specific. So we will spend some time helping you sort of find scholarships that you fit the criteria for. Do we have any questions about these things we've talked about so far, about FAFSA, about these eligibility requirements? Any questions at all? You can unmute your mic too and just speak if you don't want to type it. You can type it later too and we'll come back.
Okay, so step one, in order to fill out the FAFSA the application itself, you're going to need to create a username and password. This is only very slightly confusing because you create the username and password at a different site called, it's highlighted at the bottom in yellow, fsaid.org, Federal Student Aid ID.ed.gov. Did I say .org? What is wrong with me? fsaid.ed.gov. I don't know where my brain's at. In order to sign in and do the application for the FAFSA, you and your parent, one of them at least, have to create an FSA ID. Okay. There are things that you need to think about before starting the application, things that we can help you determine. So first of all, you need to know if you're a dependent or independent student. And what that means is everyone needs to assume that they are a dependent student unless they are not strictly living with their biological mom and dad. If you are living, wait, go ahead, Amy.
Or dad, okay. So can I, so
go ahead.
Yes.
Just,
you are a dependent student if you live with either biological parent or adopted parent. So that is, and if your parent is remarried to someone else, you would be the child of both of those people. If your parent is if you are only living with one parent and they have not remarried, you do not have to include the other parent if they don't provide more than at least 50% of your support. And we will talk with each one of you about it. As far as I can see right here, you are all dependent students. So some people occasionally get a little confused because maybe they don't live with their biological parent, but they maybe live with an aunt or a grandma. But the issue is that it's sort of an informal, maybe you're in a legal guardianship, but they haven't actually adopted you. So for the purposes of the FAFSA, your parent is your biological parent or parents, both of them if they are still married, or if they are the parent you live with is remarried, those are your parents, right? And then the only way that they would not be your parent is if you were adopted, right? And that's legally adopted. There's a couple scenarios that you may be an independent student, which would simply mean you don't have to provide income information for the adult who's supporting you. So those are kind of specific scenarios that, as far as I know right now, none of you have fallen under, but I'll just double check with each of you to make sure, because there's like a questionnaire and survey we can just double check on. Okay? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So once you decide that will decide whether or not just you needs to make an FSA ID or your parent does as well. The other thing I'll say is if you have an older sibling that has already gone to college within recent history, your parents might already have an FSA ID. So you should probably ask them about.
Or if they went to college themselves.
Or if they went to college themselves. So you're going to create a username and password called the FSA ID for yourself, and then your parent is going to make one as well. In order to do that, you're going to need several things. Your social security number and an email address that goes directly to you that you check regularly, essentially the same email address that you would use for your college applications. Don't use your Phila SD email. Once you're a senior, at some point, you're not going to have access to your high school email after you graduate. So make sure it's your independent personal / professional Gmail or whatever email that you use. You can also use a phone number if you would like, but only use a phone number if your phone number has not changed since day one and will never change for the end of time. Like, I've had the same phone number since I was 18 somehow, so I could probably use mine. But if you have gone through like 3 phone numbers in the last 2 years, probably not the best idea. The email that you use for your FSA ID can't be the same one that you use for your parents. So if you're helping your parent make one and they don't have an email account, you can't use the one that you're using. So keep that in mind. If you're a dependent student, like I said, you have to help your parents, or you guys can help each other create an FSA ID. Let's see. The FSA ID will be used every time you log on to your FAFSA until you graduate. The application, the FAFSA, needs to be done every single year for every year that you're in college. So you will be using it regularly. It's not something that you want to forget. So make sure you are writing the details down in a safe place, a safe document, a safe notebook, something like that.
Can I ask if anybody's already created their FSA ID? Some schools have already had you start doing that. If you have, can you just write it in the chat? I have created one already. You can keep going, Jeff.
Yeah. And let's see if there's anything else I wanted to say. When you guys are creating your FSA ID, I can't emphasize enough that you must make sure you get all the details correct. Capital letters, addresses, social security numbers. We have had students who try to make one with the wrong information, and then try to make another one with the correct information, but end up not being able to make one, and then we would have to call and then try to get their username and password corrected and updated, and it's like an entire thing. Our advice is put the name that you have on your physical social security card in for your FSA ID. Like the name on your social security card, unless you have legally changed it since, is what the government is expecting to see. So if you have a hyphen in your last name, make sure you're including the hyphen. Don't use your middle name as your first name, because that's happened. And that's my advice. So make sure that all the information is correct. Otherwise, a lot of headaches will be in our future. And the link is down below in the last bullet point to create those credentials.
The way it works with the FSA ID is you put in the information, you put in your everything, you submit the application, and then you have to wait for it to be verified, which is why it's an actual like important document, because they're like, oh, we have verified that this is Kayla Willis and this is her social security number and this is her FSA ID. So you can do it if you do it before you can do it now. Like you can go in now and get your FSA ID for yourself and actually have your parent do it as well. And then we'll have time for it to be verified before we actually do the FAFSA, and then we can sign the FAFSA with it that day. So we do encourage you to do it if you feel confident on your own to do it. You should, you're competent people. If you want help, we can also help you with that. Yeah, okay. All right, step 2. Okay, so we have your FSA ID. Cool. You can do that tomorrow. You know, you have a half day of school, you could do that. Step 2 is to start to gather the documents you will need. So I'm going to talk as if you guys are all dependent students, okay? So that's assuming you have to provide information for yourself and information for at least one parent, okay? So you're going to need your social security number. You're going to need your driver's license number if you happen to have one. If you don't, you would leave that blank and it would be fine. And then you're also going to need your 2019 tax records and your parents' 2019 tax records. And you might be saying, but 2019, but this is 2020. Like, why would I need that? Well, here's how it works. On the 21-22, you're going to be in college in 2021, right? That's the year you're starting college. So next year at this time, 2021, you're going to be starting college. But you always have to fill out the FAFSA the year before the year you're going to get the financial aid, right? So right now we're filling out financial aid for next year. Well, you haven't done your taxes yet for 2020 because it's not over yet. So that's why they require 2019, because it's the last year that you have completed your taxes. You and your parent have completed their taxes. Taxes are due in April 15th of every year for the previous year, right? So your parents submitted their 2019 taxes on April 15th at the latest, right? It's a little confusing. It's not that big of a deal. So it's always going to be 1 year before the day you are actually submitting it, okay? Just a couple pieces of information. In the last maybe 3 years, the FAFSA has been able to connect directly with the IRS. So if your parents actually did file taxes because they worked, they will be able, potentially be able to link it directly to the IRS data retrieval tool. And then we wouldn't have to like fill out anything. It would automatically be updated into your FAFSA, which is fantastic because then they trust that the information is verified already, and you would be like, the college wouldn't necessarily, the college you go to wouldn't require a lot of documents to support that. There is sometimes, occasionally, colleges will select you to be verified if they might ask you to submit the papers you use to fill out these forms, which is why, one of the many reasons why it's really important to be honest. It's really important to put the best and most up-to-date, accurate information that you can. So the IRS data retrieval tool is really awesome. Not everyone can use it. For some reason, if certain forms, sometimes it just doesn't work. So then that's why we want you to have the actual form with you so that we can like help you fill it out, and like you might have to manually enter it. This best case scenario, we directly attach to the data retrieval tool, and it's very simple. It's really fast, really accurate. The only thing I think I want to say from here, so maybe your parent didn't work and they didn't file taxes. If that's the case, there's a way to indicate that. So you just need to talk to your parent about it. You may know already if they file taxes or if they got their income in some non-taxable way. So some folks earn money in different ways, or they get money into their household through child support or through Social Security benefits or through retirement or through benefits from the Army, or there's a lot of different ways. So if your parent doesn't work, you just need to have a conversation with, what's the way income comes into our household. Any questions about this? Okay. Just also, if you worked in 2019 and you filed taxes, then you will also have to provide this for yourself. If you worked, but maybe you only worked in December and you didn't earn very much and you didn't file taxes, you won't have to put that information, okay? So it's only if you filed the taxes. Because sometimes you have like little, it doesn't add up to enough to actually have to file, okay? Let me know you guys are alive and still listening in the chat by telling Mr.
Literally anything.
Telling Mr. Joe what you think of his hair. Okay. You ready, Joe? Oh no, I'm still going with this. Okay, I'm still going. It's still me. We're still on step 2. Okay. Okay,
same, Steve. Same.
Okay,
Sorry, he just said taxes annoy him.
Okay, fair enough. I know. And so just remember, I just want to that's a good reminder that like this is not easy stuff, and I understand that it's a little overwhelming right now. So don't feel like you have to memorize everything I'm saying. Take a deep breath right now. And remember, Miss Amy and Mr. Joe are here to help me with this. And I'm really lucky, and I have a lot of support, and it's going to be okay. I just have to do my best to be prepared, okay? Okay, so step 2, we're still gathering documents. So many documents to gather. So I was actually just saying this isn't new. So any untaxed income, again, like we're talking about child support, interest income, veterans and non-education benefits, those kinds of things. Most people have maybe 1 or 2 things on there, but most people actually don't have those things. So it's not a lot of, it'll just depend on your family situation. And again, I'll help you talk through that. And then the last thing is that you will need to have ready, as we're doing the FAFSA, the list of the 10 colleges that you are interested in applying to. And when I said 10, you might say, oh no, I actually have 14 colleges I'm applying to. So the FAFSA online application only has 10 spots. So you fill in your top 10, you submit the application, you wait for it to get processed, then you go back into the application, signing back on with your FSA ID again, and like every time you sign in, you click make a correction, which is an option that you can do at any point to make a correction. Then you delete all of those 10 schools and you put in the 4 additional schools and submit again. And that's just the process that they have, and it works. The only thing that you got to keep in mind is that every time you make any correction, you have to correct it for the first 10 schools and then correct it again for the next 4 schools or whatever, however many you have. And that it's just a matter of waiting for it to get processed sometimes before you can, like, just because you hit submit, that doesn't mean it's updated. You have to wait, let it get processed for, usually about 5 days, and then you can go back in. Okay, so that's step 2. We got our FSA ID and we have our documents. So we're ready.
There we go. Step 3, apply online. You have set everything up. You have created an FSA ID. Your parent or guardian has created an FSA ID. You have all the documents, social security number, state ID number or driver's license number. You have the chutzpah to come and get help from us, and we are ready to apply online. So what you guys are going to do is you yourselves are going to reach out to us for a time and day during the week to help you fill out the FAFSA. The FAFSA releases October 1st every year. Used to be January. Thank God they changed it to October 1st. So every year, October 1st, that's when you can expect it. You can apply directly on October 1st.
Thanks, Obama. He's the one who changed that.
Yes, he is, and he's very smart. There is no reason to go into it. I almost went into a tangent. Doesn't matter. So once you set up the appointment, we'll check, hey, do you have your FSA IDs and all that stuff? Do you have the documents? Wonderful. Let's do this. And we'll log on. You'll share your screen. We'll be monitoring. You'll start filling in the information. We'll be like, actually, that's wrong, or you might have some questions. Hopefully the IRS data retrieval tool works. And then we will put all the information in and submit that FAFSA. And then right after the FAFSA is submitted, it'll say, hey, congrats, you submitted your FAFSA. Did you also want to do your FIA? And we're going to be like, yes, please. And then we're going to click on that and then resubmit a quicker form since you already did all that information already. Just do a couple of clicks, choose your top school that you're thinking of, and then submit that to the state as well. And then that is that on that. Let's see if I missed anything. We'll apply on October 1st, but as early as possible to meet deadlines. The PA state deadline is always June 30th of the following year. So if it's, October 1st, 2020 is when it comes out for this year. It ends June 30th. School deadlines are listed on each school's website. So for instance, when I went to Temple, the deadline was always February 28th to submit the FAFSA. Most are due by March. A lot of financial aid is first come, first serve, which is why we are like, hey, October 1st is when it releases. Let's get it done ASAP. Just the same thing with college applications, first come, first serve. The quicker you do the application, the higher you will be on the list. You will use your FSA ID to start the application. FAFSA, FIA, blah, 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 come prepared. And there is help functions that the FAFSA provides, including a live chat where we call someone. There has been a few cases where I have had to get on the phone and be like, hey, I'm with the student. We just were confused about this one portion. And we solve it and we continue and it's okay. So that might happen, hopefully not.
Yeah, we would love to have your parent with you when this happens. So when you set up your appointment, so you'll set up your appointment once you have your paperwork together, really, because an appointment's not going to really benefit you too much if you can't fill anything in, right? So you need to talk to your parent like today, and then let's start talking about when after October 1st we can set up our appointment.
Mm-hmm. And if you have your FSA IDs completed and done and have the information already, we could finish the entire process in a half an hour. Mm-hmm. The application truly isn't that long, depending on the data retrieval tool and whatnot. If we have to put individual pieces of the financial information in, we could do it under an hour if everything is set up. So just keep that in mind.
All right, here is our final step, sort of. Check your email. So we're doing this all online, which we would do regardless of whether or not we were in this kind of pandemic situation. Everything is online. You're gonna get emails from studentaid.gov confirming that your FAFSA was processed. And then you need to just double check that you'll double check your info is correct by logging on to the FAFSA after it's been processed. So they'll have like a student aid report is what it's called. And you'll look and you'll see Simone, and you'll see your name and make sure your birth date's right. And you'll just look it over and it looks great. For like, say you thought you spelled, your name Famone. And so then you're like, oh no. And so then you can log on, you can correct the mistakes and submit it again. And then at that point, so it's all submitted, they're going to start sending the information to those schools that you told them to submit it to. So then you're going to start getting emails from those colleges. So from Temple University, Ali's going to say, we received your financial aid information. You might not get a financial aid package right away. Like, honestly, you won't get a financial aid package right away. You'll get your acceptance letter first. They might include in that acceptance letter a special scholarship you got or something like that, but that will not be your financial aid package. That will just be like, you're admitted and your grades look awesome, so we're going to give you this thing. But we need your FAFSA, right? And then financial aid packages start coming out probably late April, unfortunately. Like they should be coming out like early April, but a lot of schools are sending them out late April. So that's going to be just kind of watching and paying attention. Schools might ask you for additional paperwork after they receive your FAFSA. They might have a special form you have to fill out. They might ask you to send a copy of your social security card, or they might ask you to send just like random things. And so you can't just be like, I did it, and just kind of been like, it's done. It's not really done until you're like in class, to be honest. And so you have to kind of just be prepared to just like kind of keep going after little things, doing the little thing, and just accept that that's the process. You didn't do anything wrong. They're not after you. It's not like it always comes for you. Like, this literally happens to every person. And the difference between getting a degree and not getting a degree, honestly, is just like being like, okay, cool. Okay, you need that? Okay, cool. And not letting it get you down or frustrated. Just kind of keep on keeping on, which you guys are all great at doing. You're all keeping on right now and all the time. All right, Joe.
Wait, real quick.
What?
If there's, email. You might be getting emails from schools or FAFSA or FIA for some reason to your spam folder. Keep an eye out for that, just in case. And then the last thing I would say is, if you're the type of person who has like 1,322 unread messages in your email inbox with the email that you're using for all your applications,
Delete them.
I would highly suggest reading them and deleting them. If they are mostly like spam or coupons or advertisements, just delete them all. Unsubscribe yourself from email lists that like keep pestering you, because we see it every year, your applications, emails from schools and colleges will get lost in just all of it. So
use the star function, like you can in Gmail, you can star important things. You can also create little subfolders like financial aid emails, just so you can like go back to it and organize yourself. And
that's what I did. I actually saw, just a fun tidbit, my old like grad school folders for applications, and saw like my personal statement and stuff like that. It was just really nice. So keep organized.
Do you want me to?
Is this me?
Yeah.
So how much will I get? That's a good question. Financial need is determined by the cost of attendance, which is the tuition of the school, the associated fees, and those fees would be like going towards the gym at the school, or the student health center, or technology fees, or if you're in science labs, you might have a lab fee for safety. Room, which is, dorms where you're living, and board usually means food, meal plans, other things like that. So the cost of attendance and your expected family contribution which is determined by your FAFSA itself, the financial information you're supplying. So the cost of attendance minus what your family is expected to contribute equals the financial need that they have calculated you have.
Just an FYI about the EFC, that is when you actually submit your FAFSA and you get that student aid report, they're going to tell you what your EFC is. And it's anywhere from $0 to, you know, full tuition for those, you know, very wealthy people. I think, do we have a question, Joe? Those people under, okay. Any families making under $27,000 have an automatic EFC of 0. Yeah, what are the questions, Joe?
Kayla said, is this separate from Met Need or is it the same thing?
I don't know what Met Need is. Well, how do you spell what she's asking about?
MET
need. Oh, that's good question, Kayla. It's completely different. In the past, financial need. So basically the FAFSA will tell the college what you need, and the college will come together with some kind of financial aid package, and they will tell you what they're giving you. And unfortunately, more and more colleges, the cost of college has gone up a lot, and the cost of federal, or the amount of federal aid and the amount of state aid has not kept pace. So there is often a lot of unmet need. And so one of the things that we will help you do is compare several different scholarship packages, or different financial aid packages. It's why we don't want you to apply to just one college. It's why we want to kind of like do our kind of window shopping and see what the best college is, the best financial aid package is, right? And so we need to look at what your unmet need is, and can you come up with $2,000 a year? And if you can, how can you do it? Will working a summer job help you get $2,000? Well, what about scholarships? Can you apply for additional scholarships, or is it like $10,000? You know, so that's a very good question, Kayla. It is not the same. Just because your EFC is 0 does not mean you're going to have all of your need met. It does mean you're eligible to receive the maximum amounts of all of the aid available, which is the next slide. Is there another question, Joe, about this one? Okay, so Kayla, so if your EFC, your estimated family contribution, your financial need will determine how much of these things you are eligible for. So this is from the federal, state, these are the different things that they offer. So the United States Department of Education offers a federal Pell Grant. The maximum amount that you can get per year is $6,195, and that's for 2 semesters, right? This fall and the fall and the spring. You most likely won't get the maximum amount, but that is the amount you can get. This changes every year. It's also highly political, and it can be kind of, you know, bounced around a little bit. The FSEOG is a $4,000 per year grant, and this is for students who have exceptional financial need, and it's not available at every college. So it's dependent on the college that you apply to. I have never seen $4,000. Like, I have seen students get the FSEOG award grant, but it's usually, you know, from like $200 to $700. It's a pretty rare grant. Federal work study, there's no minimum or maximum. It's just dependent on funds available to the college. So a typical financial aid package at CCP might have, you can earn $800 in the fall, and you can earn an additional $1,000 in the spring, you know, and that's just based on the college. And the other thing about a work study position is it doesn't come to you automatically. You have to go and get the job and earn that money, and then you take that money and you do whatever you want with it. So you could use it towards your tuition, you could use it for food, you could use it for whatever. So when we are looking at a financial aid package, I actually don't count federal work study, because like that's not money that's going directly to pay for your tuition unless you do that. You know what I mean? Then there are 2 types of loans offered by the federal government. There is the federal Stafford loan subsidized and the federal Stafford loan unsubsidized. So the subsidized loan is the one that you get, and that is based on your financial needs. So subsidized means that you don't have to pay any interest while you're in school. So for the 4 or 5 years that you might be taking to earn your undergraduate degree or your associate's degree, you won't have to pay interest on the total amount, and it's maxed out at $5,500 per year, which to me is good. It means you can't get yourself into too much loan debt, right? The federal Stafford loan, anyone can qualify for. It's how a lot of people pay for grad school, honestly. So if you're in grad school, you can't get a subsidized loan. You can only get an unsubsidized loan, and anyone can get that. And it's up to $20,500 a year. The issue with that one is that it is earning interest the entire time from day one until you pay it off. The good thing about federal loans and why we think if you have to take out loans, federal loans are not the worst thing, is that their interest rates are very low, around 4 to 5%, and they typically don't fluctuate much. So it's something that we do feel comfortable. Like, you know, I don't know very many people who are able to go to college with 0 loans, unless they go to CCP, which is not a bad idea. So finally, there's one other type of loan called the Federal Parent Plus loan. This is a loan that would be taken out in your parent's name. And it is, the maximum amount is the cost of attendance minus any other financial aid you received. And you'll see right there, I have in red, it's not recommended. I do not encourage your parents to take out loans for your education. That is your education, and your parents should be saving for their own retirement and be taking care of themselves. And that's not, they also don't have very good interest rates, and they are something that I don't know that you want your parent to do, honestly. I think you want this to be your education, and you don't want yourself to necessarily be tied to the pressure of your parent taking out a lot of money. If it gets to the point that you can't pay for that college without your parent taking out a loan, then you need to reconsider if that's the place you should be, in my opinion. And of course, it's my opinion. And you can take that and you can do your own investigation with it. Don't take, you know, I never want you to take exactly what I say and just believe it. I want you to take it, oh, that's an opinion, I should read more about it.
There we go. Okay, so that was for federal aid. For state student aid, for full-time enrollment, mind you, the FIA grant attending a PA college / university is max $4,140 per year. So that's within Pennsylvania. If you're a PA resident and decide to go to a college outside, you're eligible for up to $500 per year. So if you're living in Philadelphia, but you're also going to Rutgers Camden, you're not going to be eligible for the full FIA grant because it's not a PA school. Tuition at the college also may affect overall grant amount. So if the tuition isn't as much, you might be getting a smaller grant. If your tuition is huge, vice versa.
So the one thing we don't have up here is how much can I get in scholarships? So I think that one of the things I think that most people don't know is that I think the average scholarship is under $500. So most students apply for multiple small scholarships. You have a lot better chance of winning, you know, a $250 to $1,000 scholarship that just residents in Philadelphia are applying to, as opposed to a $20,000 Coca-Cola scholarship that the whole entire country is applying to, right? So we highly encourage small scholarships, multiple scholarships. One of our graduates, oh my gosh, that's so weird. One of our graduates, actually Izzy and Andy are like kind of got, I think they both got like up to 8 scholarships each. And they did it through like just multiple small applications. And got
it was annoying, but they just kept pushing them out. Miss Amy, Mr. Joe, can you look at this essay? Okay. Yes. Submitting it. And they just ended up with a lot.
And just a word that they're both working for us this semester, both Andy and Izzy. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to bring them on is because both had like offered to do scholarship writing workshops with you, and they just understand what it takes. And so I think that's a really great resource we have about students who actually get scholarships and how that works. So what's next? So what happens after I submit my FAFSA? You're going to receive your financial aid packages from colleges. You're going to review, consider, and compare financial aid packages, have a meeting, talk to me, talk to Joe, talk to teachers, talk to your parents, and you're going to look at it and really understand how much of your financial aid package is grant and gift money, how much of your financial aid package is loan money, what your overall, I think that might be, I might be going ahead of time here. Let me just, I'll get into the financial aid package a little bit more. You're gonna accept the best financial aid package. We'll talk on the next slide about financial aid packages. You're gonna stay connected with your financial aid office. You're gonna follow up any way you need to with any forms, and then you're gonna continue applying for scholarships. So the application, scholarship season is like November to like May, honestly. So it's like pump out scholarships, do little essays. So your personal statement we can use probably a lot if you put some effort into it. And then you need to usually pay your deposit around May 1st. And it's anywhere from $25 if you're not going to live on campus to like $600 to reserve your room. Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Wonderful. So things to consider as you review your financial aid award letters. Think about and understand the amount of gift aid versus amount of aid you will have to pay back. So how much am I getting in grants and scholarships, and how much in loans? So is that worth it? Am I, and how much of a gap am I left with all the gift aid and amount of aid you'll have to pay back? So something to consider. And so what that truly means is some schools notoriously give pretty good like merit-based scholarships that you don't have to pay back. Some schools don't give as much aid. So that's just something to consider. Understand your total debt after 4 years and how you will pay it back. If you end up having to accept a federal loan and it's about like, you have to accept about $1,500 a semester in loans, just think about what that total amount is going to be at the end of your 4 or 5 year college career, and if that's something that's doable for you. Understand that you have to pay it back whether you get your degree or not. That's it. In order to be considered full-time, you must be enrolled in at least 12 credits, so that's usually about 4 classes. Being full-time or part-time at a college will affect your financial aid. And if you drop a course because you're not doing well and you accidentally drop down below your full-time status of credits, that will affect your financial aid. So that's something to think about as well. Financial aid is tied to academic performance. So in school, let's say it's your first semester and you do great. It's your second semester and you do terribly. And you do bad and the school says, hey, we see this, you're on academic probation. You have the next semester to work on your grades and get it up. Otherwise, your financial aid might be at risk and your status at the school. So your satisfactory academic performance is required. If you default on a student loan, you cannot receive future aid until you pay it back. So what does that mean? If you still have loans, let's say 10 years from now, you have still loans from the first time you went to college and you want to go back to college, but you have ignored and have not been paying those loans. You can't get more financial aid until you take care of what happened in the past. So pushing it off is not going to help if you ever want to return back for school. Students who attend for-profit colleges have a high debt load and low graduation rates. CCP is a better option educationally and financially. For-profit colleges or colleges that are typically not like specially accredited by the national, what's it called?
They can be accredited. They just, their goal is to, they are for-profit, meaning that their primary purpose is a company to make money, as opposed to a nonprofit, which most colleges are. So they are credited, Joe, typically. It's just that they're not, they're just, their goal is not to make you graduate. They don't care if you graduate. They just want you to take a lot of classes and give them money.
So what are some examples? The Art Institute.
Yep, right. The Art Institute, sure.
Everest College. Like yep. Honestly, any colleges that heavily advertise, you see their ads on between YouTube videos, on the school, Southern New Hampshire University or something like that. There's a bunch. So know what the difference is and try to avoid those. They have a high debt load and they don't guarantee careers or anything like that. Just beware, you're in for a scare. We strongly discourage students from taking out private loans from banks to attend college. Why? Well, I'm glad you asked. That's because banks are privately owned and they can set whatever interest rates they want. With the government, you know that the two loans that we mentioned before with the direct unsubsidized and subsidized, they have interest rates capped around 4.5%. The Parent Plus loan is about 10 to 11%, which is why we really don't recommend it. Private loans can go up to 25%. And that's really at the discretion of the bank, and depending on the agreement you have with the bank for a private
And your
loan,
credit, yeah.
it can affect your credit, and they can change the interest rate year to year, depending on.
So how where that would come up is if you got all your financial aid and you're like, I'm $10,000 short, let me go to this bank and get a $10,000 loan. Some students have considered doing that, and we really don't think that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Okay, and you got to do the FAFSA each year.
Yes.
Okay,
that's it.
sorry, I'm trying to keep it moving. Okay,
My God, it's 7:06.
Yeah,
sorry.
right. You were on it, Joe. Okay, so I want you to avoid these common mistakes. I'm not going to go over it too much right here. I think it's stuff we've said a lot of times. So we'll
really
actually,
like the biggest things to look at is like misspelling. Like that's
well, it's fine. So let's wrap it up here. So you need to, you can find a bunch of information on the Google Drive in the shared Upward Bound Senior Seminar folder. So if you went to the shared UB Senior Seminar information, click on number 4, financial aid information, you'll see this presentation, how to determine if you are a dependent or independent student, the list of documents you need to gather, and then there's a FAFSA on the web worksheet. And you can complete that with your parent ahead of time, like if you're able to print it out and just write on it, and that will make the financial aid process, application process go like even quicker. So your next step is to review all of those things, review this PowerPoint again, and to set up your next one-on-one session with me or Joe. And so we can get to talking about it and we can help you with anything that you are worried about. You also probably have gotten comments from me or Mr. Joe on anything you've put in your senior seminar folder regarding personal statements and resumes. I know I've gone through everybody at least once. I've put in templates for you guys to work on your resumes. So I'd love to see some work happening in that way. It's hard because we don't get to see you as much. So you got to keep on it. You got to keep on us. We love you guys. Do you have any questions before we let you sign out and you can go rest your eyes for a second? If you have no questions, you can type in the chat one thing you learned today.